So you guys may recognize this from Xbox from a video I made a couple months ago, right around my channel taking off, about this being my first modded Xbox. So in this video, we're going to be installing the Aladdin XT Plus 2 mod chip into it. And here it is. I'm going to be installing it via a pin header. Open it. So I'm going to be installing it this way instead of like some people where they just lay it straight on the motherboard and use this right here. I'm not a big fan of that. I rather use the socket right here so I can move them around, because I only have 3 and I have 7 where this pin header's installed. So let's get this thing torn down. Now I didn't put any of the major case screws into it just because I knew I won't be taking it back apart soon, so that's why there are no case screws in there. And this is a version 1.1. This is my only version 1.1 Xbox I own. All the other ones I own are 1.6. And usually if I'm not taking them anywhere, I don't put any of the major structurally screws in there, just because it's easier to get them apart. I usually don't put the screw that holds down the hard drive caddy, because that's usually not necessary. Nor do I put the 6 screws in unless I know I'm be taking it somewhere. So this will be a learning experience for both of us, because I've never installed a mod chip into a 1.1 before. It's always been 1.6. People say it's easier, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't done it yet, so we'll see. So after all the screws are removed, it should, in theory, lift up. I'm not too sure, because I did like the most irritating thing, and I just soldered everything together. So we'll see about that. Probably going to have to take this controller port out. Just so I can get the motherboard out. Oh, there's another screw there. Okay. Here what I'm going to be doing is replacing the thermal paste on both the CPU and the GPU, because I realized that my GPU was running a little toasty and I just like replacing it. And because I finally got some new thermal paste, I'll put a picture up on the screen what I used to use. It was like a little 1 gram tube I got from my CPU cooler from my desktop. So let's remove the GPU cooler clamp. And I sped this up because it took about 30 minutes to get the GPU off. The CPU never gives me any trouble because it's just the die of the CPU, so there's not a lot of surface area contact in the heatsink. So what I like doing is putting the heat sinks on and running the system until the GPU's heatsink warms up enough to where it softens that thermal paste enough to wiggle it off. And here I'm just removing the fan just to get out of the way. And I recommend using Goo Gone to remove this old pink thermal paste, because Microsoft really cheaped out on it and it's really gross thermal paste. Like it cakes on there. That's why it's so hard to get that heatsink off. Cause I use 91% isopropyl alcohol, and while that does work, it just takes a really long time. So I recommend using Goo Gone. Like using a cotton swab, wiping on there, letting it soak in Goo Gone for about 30 minutes, and then coming back and it just wipes right off. It really loosens it up a lot. You can see me struggling with it here. Really trying to scrub that thermal paste off, but it doesn't want to budge. But eventually, after I just scrub it enough, it cleans the IHS off the GPU. And the only reason why I didn't scrape around the edges is because it really doesn't matter. That's not what's transferring the heat from the CPU or the GPU IHS to the heatsink anyways. So I just like cleaning the IHS. Now let's reassemble it. So starting with the DVD drive, I gotta figure out how I routed all this crap through the case. So I have power for my RGB controller, the LED controller ports, and I didn't realize that I was in the frame there for a second. And put the hard drive back down. I'm just putting it back together just enough to test it. Now let's fire it up and see if she still works. Alright, let's see if she still works. It still powers on, which is a good sign. It would probably help if I had on the right input, because you know stock original Xboxes don't output in HDMI. And there we go. She still works. Into the dashboard. Asked me for the time because I pulled that clock capacitor out. So now let's look at the BIOS, make sure it bypassed the BIOS properly. And there we go. EVOX or EVOX, however you see it. And that was a really good sign, because it took me forever to install the mod chip into this thing. Reason being is because the 1.6 what I've been doing it is the LPC header is just empty. There's no solder filling the holes. So all you literally have to do is tape the pin header in there, solder the 6 wires in there, and you're golden. Cut that one trace to bypass the Cyclops chip, I believe. But with the 1.1, I was having so much trouble clearing those holes. I wasn't able to clear them all the way. But what I was able to do is heat up the holes and then push the pin header down in it. And that worked out pretty well. It's not the most ideal thing to do, but it works. So now I'm just making sure my saved files aren't corrupted. And they're all still there, which is a good sign. Now I will say this is one of the hardest mod chips I've ever had to install. Like I said earlier, the 1.6, it's a breeze. Once you figure out how to rebuild the LPC header, it's like it's just so easy to do. But with this one, you don't have to rebuild the LPC, but it's still really difficult to do. And here I'm putting hexen in it. And I didn't learn till later that DVD drive stopped working for some reason. And it's a Samsung STG605 CD drive. And I don't have really good luck with them anyways, especially not booting at Hexen. So what I had to do is get my Hitachi drive, which boots it up every time. I haven't had an issue with that drive booting at Hexen, as well as Philips drives. Those two drives I've had the best luck with, and here it is with the Hitachi drive. It usually takes about 15 to 30 seconds to get into Hexen modding tools, but it works every time. And what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to mod chip every single one of my Xboxes, just so I can retire the stock hard drive and the stock CD-ROM drive, just to keep them from wearing out and try to preserve those parts for as long as I possibly can. And here the ring of lights turns green because all I did was just invert those LEDs to red. So whenever you boot it up into the stock dashboard, it was just red by default instead of green. And I'm flashing the no DVD BIOS to the mod chip. And this mod chip flashed no problem. What makes me believe that my other one is messed up is because it doesn't want to flash at all. Now it still works, but the one where I had to replace the hard drive in because it was wiped, that mod chip, it really didn't want to work for some odd reason, or flash. And here it is running Evolution X, which is my favorite dashboard. And here it is after the mod. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I really put a lot of time into these full length videos. So I'd really appreciate it if y'all would subscribe, and please consider liking the video too. That promotes my videos in the YouTube's algorithm and helps me out as well. And hope you guys have a great day.